And then he unleashes this ritual that just not only kills all of those other Sith Lords, but completely removes the Force from that planet.
Dude, you're making my argument for me right now about the whole entire Palpatine.
It's a pretty powerful shit.
Yeah, it really is.
But Palpatine also took all of the Kyber crystals and built a spaceship and was vaporizing planets.
Yeah, but that's all like power and empire. Like that's pretty cunning as well. Don't get me wrong.
How is the Death Star not a Sith weapon in the same way that
it
the
totally
Starforge is? Or
you're right. It totally
you don't think Palpatine infused the Force into that shit in some way, shape, or
just
form?
doing some freaky Force stuff in the background.
Well, Kyber crystals.
No, I know. No, I'm not downplaying the Death Star by any means.
He's downplaying Palpatine, the one guy who actually overthrew the Republic.
Yeah, that's true. That's
he finished the grand plan.
Yeah, you're right. But are we talking power or are we talking smarts? Or are we...
What would Darth Bane tell you?
Both.
Darth Bane would tell you that power is the simplest expression of the Force. It's actually about subterfuge. And,
True.
And
that's a really good point
sabotage.
Too, man. That's a really good point.
I'm just saying.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, I want to get back into this.
Okay, set the stage.
Who is the most powerful Sith Lord of all time, Palpatine or Lord Vitiate?
I honestly think it's Lord Vitiate. Mm-hmm.
So what's the case?
So
just because he lived a long time?
He lived a really long time, which as a Sith Lord, that is not easy to do. He obviously had a group of very loyal followers that were not able to overthrow him for a very, very long time, which is pretty impressive for a Sith Lord to be.
I wouldn't say they were loyal, but they were like
so scared.
They were terrified of him.
Yes. He was able to decimate an entire planet and void it of the living Force and anything alive just by doing a ritual. Like, that's pretty badass. Whereas when we've seen other Sith Lords do that, it wasn't at that scale, and they needed way more Siths in order to be able to do that. Like, the Brotherhood of Darkness.
Yeah, it took like 100 of them.
Yes, exactly. And it took actually some Jedi to be there too, apparently. You know, like, what he was able to do was truly unparalleled, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that there's a good case that he's the most powerful of them, because like he also just wouldn't die, which is very Palpatine-esque. Like when he gets defeated, like his body, like his spirit, like teleports over to this like other character. No, just kidding. Well, because like there's this whole thing that we won't even get into, but like there's this thing called the Infinite Empire, or not the Infinite Empire. I'm blanking on what it's called, but like there's a whole other like faction that Vitiate like teleports into and like starts running, and then there's three factions. It's like his faction, and then like the new Sith, and then the Jedi. It's like all this stuff. It takes like he gets defeated like 3 times before he actually dies forever. Yeah, like he certainly was the most powerful. But like one of the things to me, Palpatine is the greatest Sith Lord of all time in terms of like overall accomplishment. And the main reason why is like he accomplished what no other Sith Lord could do. He ruled the galaxy.
I see that.
And to put it simply, like Darth Bane basically discovers like, hey, just like Scourge betrayed Vitiate at the end, like the Sith always turn on each other.
Right.
Now, Sadao failed because they turned on each other. Revan failed. Darth Revan failed because his apprentice turned on him. We just went over all that. We're not going to get into it again. But the Sith keep turning on each other. And so Bane finally goes like, nope, we can't do it this way. We have to limit our numbers, focus all the power of the dark side in 2 individuals. You know, one Dark Lord to embody the power, another to crave it, right?
Yeah.
And then that will pass down the line. And we can't beat the Jedi through force of arms. That's the main thing. And there's a really interesting scene in the end of the first Bane book, which I appreciate, where when Bane calls in it calls to the fleet and goes like, engage the Jedi, which allows the blockade to be broken so that the Army of Light can slip those 300 Jedi through the lines. It's all part of Bane's plan, which was genius. But in that process, there's a moment where Lord Khan, the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness, looks out on the field of battle and goes like, for a brief second, it seemed like they might have been able to turn the tide if they could have organized and fought together. Yeah. But instead, every Sith Lord basically went to self-preservation mode and fled the scene. And he's like watching the Jedi like stay together and fight. And like there's even before the reinforcements break through the line, he's like amazed at how well the Jedi are holding up just because they're fighting together. And so like that's kind of like just a basic concept where it's like the Jedi can always win through force of arms because they're self-sacrifice, loyalty, like unwavering commitment to the cause.
So I know we need to close this up, but I will say this. It feels like, and I'm not downplaying Palpatine at all. Like, obviously the dude is wicked, right? So powerful. But Palpatine had all this momentum leading up into his power. Like, there were many Sith Lords before him, starting with Bane, that had quite legitimately paved the way and sophisticated the science of Sithery, we'll say. and he just happened to be kind of in the right spot at the right time. Granted, there was a lot of manipulation that he had done.
Look at everything Plagueis did.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of good that he had done for his cause, but Lord Vitiate, like, truly was self-made. He was, if I remember right, he just grew up in this small little village. His dad was like a farmer, I think. And then his birth dad ended up getting his mom pregnant, right? And that's how he was conceived. And then he killed his dad, and his birth dad apparently was this badass Sith, right? He killed him and then took over an entire planet and then destroyed said planet and then literally
destroyed all the top Sith Lords too.
Yes, and then literally ran his side of the galaxy and was able to crush the most powerful Sith of the time with a single, like, flip of a switch all at once. Like, that's pretty impressive. Like, I've got to say, like, that's
you're making
pretty
a very
crazy.
good case. I think you've made the case pretty clearly that Vitiate is the most powerful Sith Lord of all time.
I see where you're.
And the case you made, you're right, because, like, Anybody who's read the Darth Plagueis book knows, like, literally to the moment that Palpatine got elected Chancellor, Palpatine was behind, or Plagueis was behind the scenes. Like, there were many senators who just didn't show up to the vote.
Yeah.
Like, Palpatine and Plagueis pulled a lot of shady shit to get Palpatine in power. And, like, not to mention, like, them defeating their enemies, the Gran, at the time. Like, there's so much that they did. You're right. Palpatine was basically the guy that, in a relay race, who took them across the finish
he got
line.
to hit the button.
Yeah.
He did everything right to be able to hit the button. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Like, I do not want to downplay Palpatine at all. The dude's a badass.
Can I just say this, too? I do not factor in the sequel trilogy in Palpatine's success.
No.
It's such bullshit.
No, that is not Star Wars.
Yeah,
that is not George
it's
Lucas'
not
Star Wars.
I
No,
100% agree.
that timeline, that story was completed when Palpatine was killed. Really killed.
I 100% agree.
Like,
but even just within that focus, like, for half a century or so, I can't remember exactly the total number of years, but for a long time, he ruled the galaxy.
He did.
Once more to Sith.
Also, Palpatine was kind of this, like, whiny little B word for a long time, like, growing up. Like, truly, dude, he was kind of just a little dickhead, you know?
Well, one of the things that I find interesting about Palpatine, and they get into this in the Plagueis book, and the voice actor does an amazing job, but he's very much a politician.
Yeah, he is.
Like Plagueis to me was another guy that, like, was arguably one of the most powerful Sith Lords of all time. And he even identified Palpatine as basically, Plagueis knew the minute he found Palpatine, like, we're the guys who are going to finish the grand plan. Like, Plagueis knew, like, we are the ones who are going to take this across the finish line. And specifically, he pointed at Palpatine as the guy who could be in the chair.
Right. The face.
Like, that was the guy.
Of who they were.
He could, because he, like, and that's the thing is, like, and that's the beautiful thing about the way they casted Palpatine too, is, like, that actor was so capable of nailing both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
And like, to just like how in The Phantom Menace, how, like, just like kind of like pompous and politician-y he was. And
pompous Palpatine politician.
But anyway, yeah, I do think it's an interesting debate. We'll have to get into Revan another time.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's all we have for today. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us. We will be back after the first episodes of The Acolyte to break it all down, and throughout that series. We appreciate you guys for supporting us. We'll see you guys then.
Thanks a lot.